Oh.
Okay, good evening. It is 6:05, November the 6th, 2023, and it's time to call the city council meeting to order. Ms. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Austin?
Present.
Mr. Hukin?
Here.
Ms. McGinnis?
Here.
Ms. Nally?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
Mr. Prine? You're not Ms. Price. And Mr. Taylor?
Here.
You can tell Jane only has a few more meetings left.
Do you have a quorum?
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese.
I invite you to join me. Our Father, we come to you this evening, and we thank you for the privilege of being here in City Hall tonight. I pray you be with this meeting, be with every item on the agenda. We thank you as we welcome some new officers. I pray you bless them, protect them, be with them and their families as they serve our community here. And God, I pray that you be with all of the rest of the things, give wisdom and discernment to our council for the decisions they make. We thank you for our state, thank you for our country, thank you for our armed forces. Be with them as they serve and protect. Keep us safe here at home. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that gets us to announcements and public comments, and we do have a swearing-in ceremony for a couple of our finest, with Jason Beck and Richard Harrington. So are we ready to roll? Well, I got here to do Jason first. Okay. Thank you, sir, and welcome aboard. We've seen this happen almost every time. It's not easy. Don't feel bad. Didn't stab you. And member of the Franklin, Indiana Police Department. Member of the Franklin, Indiana Police Department. Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. Solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. Constitution of the State of Indiana. Constitution of the State of Indiana. And that I will faithfully discharge all my official duties. And I will faithfully discharge all of my duties. Congratulations. Okay. Is there any other announcements or public comment that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will go into the consent agenda, but let's wait just a second because we have some people exiting. I don't know why people don't want to stay for the whole meeting. Exciting stuff.
That's why she was crying.
Okay, we'll go into the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda for meeting minutes October 16, 2023 for a common council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there isn't any old business. We'll go into new business.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read new business by title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go on to item number 1, approval of ordinance 2023-14 street and utility right-of-way ordinance introduction, senior planner Joanna Tennell. And we also have an attendance with Joanna is Natasha Rashan, I think is how to pronounce that. And she works with Masters Group, who we have hired through the Board of Works to help us with some of the cable pollution stuff that we have. Thank you, Joanna.
Good evening. Before you this evening is a draft of the street and utility right-of-way ordinance. For ease, we are requesting that we repeal and replace the entire previous ordinance that was adopted in 2021. In this ordinance, the items that are added or modified are in red to make it a little bit easier to go through and see the additions. So as the mayor said, myself, Natasha Mershon, and Mark Richards had worked on the updates of this ordinance. One of the main differences is currently we do not require any permitting requirements for aerial facilities to be attached to poles. So there's language in here regarding that. Natasha provided most of the technical aspects of installation and information about as-built. So if you have any questions regarding the technical aspects, Natasha would be able to answer those. Also in here is a clarification under section 7, just going from bore and jack to underground boring, because there are 2 different types of boring per conversation with the mayor. Then the other modification that Mark would be able to speak to specifically is for any utility or street restorations in the brick pavers, especially with the new Yandy Street opening. We didn't have anything in the current ordinance that addressed how you repair or do any of those modifications in that. And then there is also language in here regarding the maintenance and identifying what cable pollution is. And then a section has been added in regard to violations. There are typically 2 types that we're now going to have. One is the line pollution violation, which we are recommending that the fine for violating anything considered line pollution to be $500 per offense per day, which would max out at $2,500 per offense. And then any general right-of-way violations are up to $2,500. Also added language in there about how the money would be received, should there be a fine assessed, and then if it went unpaid, giving Ms. Gray the authority to forward it on to city court for jurisdiction. So Ms. Gray did review this entire ordinance, so if you have any questions related to the violation or prosecution, she would be able to speak to that.
I did want to point out, one of the things is the transmission of electric power is solely within the province of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. So we can't regulate Duke and what they do. The idea is that because that is such an important part of any society, that local towns can't move the transmission. So Duke is on its own within the Utility Regulatory Commission, but what we did find was a lot of people are using some of their poles in other areas without even contacting them. So my sense is we will probably be able to work with them and say, did you know that so-and-so is tacking things onto your poles? I can't imagine they would like that, but we haven't had anything to do. We haven't had anything really to enforce and work with them on that. But they are under the complete province of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission as the law currently stands. And they're not our troublemakers. It's the other utility.
So this is introduction tonight, but with Natasha being here, if you have any questions on this, she would probably be a good one to answer what she's already found and what you've already done. And, I mean, I don't want the meeting to go on forever tonight. I will say that Joanna and Natasha and Tara and I met with a couple state legislators today and some people at AIM to start trying to write some kind of legislation to help the cities and towns to be able to enforce some of the rules that we have. These cable companies have no standardized, they just don't have any standards to follow, and it makes it pretty difficult when the cities and towns try to implement their stuff without the state backing. But I think we're making some ground. Wouldn't you agree? It seemed like we are. So anyway, trying to get legislation passed is pretty hard. So do you have any questions?
Are these rules retroactive? In other words, if,
They would be for the city once the ordinance, I don't know how long
No,
it
they're not
takes.
retroactive. But what we're putting in, when we already have everything in black already, so that's equally applicable to what we already have. But the red is new, so it wouldn't be
well,
retroactive.
you would hope they would go through and clean it up anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could enforce it,
Yeah.
yes.
And that's what Natasha's been doing a good job of. She is holding her feet to the fire and getting, do you have a couple examples of what we've got accomplished? Go, Natasha, go up here, please.
So recently, we got a phone call from the property owner on Hurricane. He owned some silos over there, and they placed, one of the telecommunication companies had placed a manhole. The manhole sunk. The ground around it sunk, and it was a big safety issue. When he was bringing the semis in, there was a risk of it, causing a big headache over there. And so what happened was, he had been trying for weeks to get someone out there. No one was responding to him. The mayor, he contacted the mayor, they contacted me. I made a few phone calls, hunted down who it belonged to because there was no name on it. And I can't open one of those big manholes, most people can't. We were able to identify who owned it, and within 48 hours, it was fixed. They went out there, they backfilled it, properly filled it, and then less than a week later, another hole occurred, a sinkhole, in the same drive. So I requested that they go back out and inspect the entire drive because it led back to a dish tower. So we had more than one utility, telecommunications service provider that was feeding that tower. And so they went out there, they checked for any other possible sinking locations and put new gravel down in the entire area and fix the hole that had sunk. And it was just because of the boring that they had done through there had caused the ground to collapse. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. We've also ran into issues over around the university, over at your college, where the lines have busted. What's called a tie line, which when they put a new cable up with an old cable, it's called an overlashing process. And so they'll use a thin, some call it fish line, but it's bigger than that. And what it is, it's a tie cable that they pull them and hold it together. But over time, the weight of the lines will cause them to snap. So then you have loose dangling cables, and you have these strands just hanging. So when I got out there after the college had called me, they called me. When I got out there, I watched a college student grab a hold of it. He didn't know what it was, so he's just walking down pulling on it. So I notified the telecommunications service provider, got him out there, and had it fixed right away. We discussed the stub poles that were out there on both sides of the college. And it's because when one comm is still on a pole, they don't want to move off that pole because it's a headache to them, they'll say. or it's gonna cost them more money. Well, it needs moved. There's a reason why we want it moved. There's a brand-new pole. Over here on Water Street, it causing construction to slow down on the new project over here. They couldn't put the sidewalk in because there's a pole there still. So it was brought to my attention. I just happened to stop into the mayor's office one day. He brought it to my attention. We went down there. I hunted down who it belonged to, started pulling up the PEDs to look at the names on everything. It was a Comcast cable. I called him, talked to the rep, and he said, well, let's see what I can do. Within 2 hours, I got a phone call back. Within 24, 48 hours, they went out and relocated it underground. The house was still able to keep their fiber going to their home. Actually, it was coax. And they're able to remove the pole and pour the concrete. So it's just a matter of us being able to contact these people, get it resolved, and get these problems taken care of. Because we don't want to see, pedestals broken and damaged. It looks bad in the town. It looks bad in someone's front yard. And when the little kid's running through, you don't want them to trip over these and cut themselves. You don't want your roads damaged because they're potholing and not repairing the roads properly and leaving big pot. So we want to try to keep it going to where we're cleaning up, and the progress is going pretty good. We've been in the field for, I think, since the last meeting, so over a month and a half. And our team has pulled over 600 pictures of problems in just the Franklin area of issues. And what we've done is we've addressed the issues at a critical level. So we're trying to contact the comms with the big critical problems first, get those addressed, and then work down till we get to the smaller ones. And they're being more cooperative, but the comment that we've heard back already is, well, are you gonna put an ordinance through or not? Because if they're not gonna be held accountable, why do they care? So we want them to be held accountable, so that way they actually do, work with us better. They are working with us, but they're still giving a little pushback.
They know the ordinance is coming, and they also know that we're working with state legislators, and they're going to try to do something. So hopefully we can make some progress in the next year. Hope
Yes.
so. So anyway, any questions for Natasha on this? Thank you, appreciate it. And it's introduction only, so 2 more weeks, hopefully we have it passed. So, all right, next item. Approval of Council Budgetary Resolution 23-10, a transfer from cemetery supplies to cemetery services, $1,452.75. Parks Department Superintendent Chip Horner.
This is just a request that we move existing money from one account to another to pay some bills at the end of the year here.
And we can do action on this one tonight.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, Chip. Next item, introduction of budgetary ordinance 23-16 to appropriate the Community Crossings Grant money in the amount of $741,879.66 for the city's portion, Clerk Treasurer Jane Rhodes. And this is introduction. And again, I hate to be a smart aleck here, but man, I feel like we have done this several times.
Correct, but what we had to do was we had to get all the money in one pot, and that's kind of what we did before, because we took it from MVH, LRS, and then some Board of Works, and we put it all in one pot for the community crossings. Now you need to tell me that I can spend it.
Okay, so this one is introduction only tonight, correct? Okay, so that one's been introduced. The next one, approval of ordinance 23-12, authorizing advance payment of certain expenses, City Attorney Lynn Gray. And this is also introduction.
It is, and thank you, Mayor. I don't know that you've dealt with it as much as the council, but certainly at the Board of Works level. We found, particularly since COVID, with issues of getting items delivered on a timely basis, supply issues, that many of our contractors for various projects were asking that there be down payments or deposits made on contracts. And up until recently, government wasn't allowed to prepay for expenses until the actual service was done. The legislature changed that law because they saw that this was coming frequently. And with the delay of, well, for instance, the Board of Works approved buying a generator for City Hall and one for the Parks and Recs just tonight. It's 36 weeks out. And so most vendors are not willing any longer to carry that advance cost for 36 weeks, whereas used to, they'd do it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they were going to get their money, and so they didn't. So what this is this tracks the public law that you'll see referenced there, Public Law 181-2023, that allows the clerk treasurer to make an advance payment under certain conditions, and all those conditions are set forth. I'd like to tell you that this was some creative writing on my part. I just stole it from the law and just duplicated it, so it's exactly as the legislature passed it, and allows us to then, under those circumstances, advance pay certain types of expenses that we never had before.
Okay, so that one was introduced.
Stole is a bit strong. I borrowed from it. Yeah,
Duplicate.
yeah, I duplicated.
All right. Next item. Approval of ordinance 23-13, an ordinance of the city of Franklin providing for clothing and equipment allowance and repealing and replacing ordinance number 19-03 and ordinance number 11-09, relatively the same.
That,
City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure you recall that when you passed your budget this year, you passed a budget allowing for a clothing allowance that was increased from what it previously was, which was $800 a year, and in your budget, you approved it to $1,000. Just because we have it in the budget doesn't mean, however, that we can start paying it until you amend your clothing allowance ordinance to reflect the change from $800 to $1,000. So that's all this is. It just changes the amount. Everything else remains the same. This was brought forward several years ago, Jane, I think, because there was some confusion within the clerk treasurer's office of knowing when to pay it and how to pay it and what was the process. So that was the basis of having the original ordinance in place. Here's when it gets paid twice a year. So on, all of those things have changed. The only difference is it's $800 to $1,000 with the increase of expenses. But it's already in your budget for next year.
Is this one introduction?
It is,
Okay.
yes, sir. It's an ordinance.
Introduction as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor, can you tell me when was the last time we increased that cost?
When we did our last one,
I think what Kenny's asking there is,
In 19,
yeah. Because if you recall, the conversation was.
600? Was it 600?
Yeah, and
I don't think we raised that in 19. We haven't raised that for many, many years.
I was gonna say, I thought it was
it
a,
was 800, because they get 400.
It's been over 18 years.
It's what I thought. It's been about 18 years since that's been raised. Yeah.
it was way past.
well, our very first one was in 2011. Yeah, I looked it up on where we were doing it, because we repealed it 2011, and then we had one in 2019. So it's been that way for a while.
I know since I was on the council since 2008, there's been a clothing allowance. There may
Correct.
not have been a.
Increase.
Yeah, the clothing allowance has been 800, but there hasn't been an ordinance. Yeah.
I think we had to bring in an ordinance.
Yeah, in 2011.
Yes.
They want, and that's when we brought it in.
Okay.
And then after that ordinance was in, the last one was in 19, was the clerk treasurer wanting to know, do we do it? Because what would happen is people would bring in allotted expenses just randomly, and it was a constant. So now we just do it 2 times a year. Here's when it is. This is how you do it. That was what, 19, and then this one would increase it from 800 to 1,000.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's introduced. Under other business, for information only, we don't need to vote on this one. It's the 2024 council meeting schedules, and the city, or the Board of Works approved it tonight. If I remember off of memory, I think there's 4 meetings that's not on a Monday night. There's a couple Wednesdays and a couple Tuesdays, So anyway, that's for information on the next year council meetings, and now that gets us to council member comments, and Josh Price, I'll start with you.
Josh,
No comments.
No comments after that?
No comment.
Thank you, Josh. Ann?
Just want to congratulate everyone on this weekend. We weren't here, we were out of town, but heard it was great downtown and packed. So I hope that the stores did well and everyone was happy with it. So I've heard good things.
Good, thank you. Ken?
I have nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Bob?
Nothing, thank you.
Rainey?
No, nothing for me.
Jennifer?
So the Yandes Street opening, the ribbon cutting was a great turnout. Like, there were tons of people from the community that came out to support that, so that was good to see.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody that was able to come, was able to be there as well. So thank you for that. And I will tell you that one of the people was there as head of the MPO, the Metropolitan Organization, which helps us get grant funds. And she told me when she was leaving, she said, Mayor, I've never seen a crowd for one of these this big. It's usually the mayor and a couple city council people, and that's about it. So that left a big impression on them. And Anna, her name is Anna, and she also asked Mark, when's your next application? So because they're impressed on how we manage our stuff. So thank you all for coming. Okay. Anna? Introduce everybody.
I'm Anna. This is Maddie right here on the right, and then Sydney, Lizzie, and Addie. So currently, our application for the Moon Tree is still pending. We are going to be working with Duke Energy to put an electric car charging station in the amphitheater downtown. But we are working on a presentation to bring forth to the city council so that we can get that going and approved. As a smaller project, we want to work with the Arts Council to create banners for the 2024 eclipse coming, and we're going to do that in the amphitheater parking lot, hopefully, and work with a local graphic design artist to help us do so. And then in the near future, we are going to be having a booth at the Winter Market to sell baked goods to raise money for Christmas Angels.
Okay, thank you. Tara, do you have anything to add? Okay, Jane?
No, sir, thank you.
Ms. Gray?
yes, one thing tomorrow is Election Day. And after that, the state legislature, as most of you know, has a requirement that is newly elected officials must attend a training. And our clerk treasurer has all of the places that training is available, and you have to then certify. So it would be a newly elected individuals to attend this certification.
It's a good idea, I think.
Yeah, now that you don't have to do it. Yes, sir. Jennifer Prine, okay. I have yet to get a definition since you were appointed versus elected, so you may be on the hook. But I've always found it, quite frankly, very helpful. In addition to registering for it, they will give you an AIM manual of all laws that newly elected officials should have, so it's part of it. So Jane has all the various places it's available, every the site. So okay, so there you go. So make sure and register for it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Sounds fun. So with that said, I don't have anything to add. I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.